That's how I feel whenever I'm trying to buy shoes.
Yeah. Have you ever added shoes you wanted to your cart and then you go to your cart and they're gone?
I just know whenever there's new Jordans, it's a terrible chance that I'll get them.
That's really sad.
It happens every time.
It's painful, isn't it?
I remember the first time, I think this was like at the beginning, early in our marriage, I wanted these, they're called the Jubilee 11s. They're like black Jordans that came out. And Jordan was up all night trying to get these Jordans for Christmas for me. And she didn't get them, so she cried. That's how bad she wanted to get them. I was like, it's okay. It's just some shoes.
You're like, you must have never experienced this type of pain before.
Yeah, dude, she was heartbroken.
Well, I just experienced my first heartbreak because I have a lot of St. Louis Cardinal hats. They're my favorite. And actually, my Maverick City hat that I have, like that trucker hat, love it, very old school style. My mom sent me a link last week because Lids just posted St. Louis Cardinal hats that look just like that Maverick City hat and same color and everything. And my mom bought it for me. So I'm having a new hat come in the mail sometime this week, which is those trucker hats are my favorite. But this St. Louis Cardinals hat, it was the first emotional attachment I had to a hat. And then it got ripped from my heart. So much so you can't even find it on the website anymore. It's like they knew. Like,
I'm sure it'll come back.
I don't know. Maybe next St. Patrick's Day. I'll have to wait a whole year.
If I was a company and the hat sold out that fast, I would do another.
Yeah. Well, they have all different types of styles, but the one that I want, they don't have. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us into the intro for our podcast.
Yeah. When you're young.
Hats matter.
Hats matter. And shoes.
Shoes. Shoes is a big one. But
well, we're back.
Yep.
We're back and we have our third honcho who wasn't here for our intro last week. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Jake.
State Farm.
Okay. Pastor Jesse Lee Jones Jr.
That's how you said it. I'm Jake.
I'm Jake.
You have to put State Farm.
State Farm.
Oh my gosh.
Would you like to buy some insurance?
It's so funny. Anytime we go anywhere now and Jake, tells them his name, like restaurants or whatever. What's your name? Jake. And it never fails. It's literally probably 80% of the time where they're like, from State Farm?
Yes.
And now we have to do this like, no, like this, like, I don't want to make those people feel like an idiot, even though in my mind I'm like, you're an idiot,
I love that commercial. It's my favorite.
So tell them what you do.
What I do?
Yeah, like this is for people who are in the ministry. I'm a children's pastor. Jesse's
a student's
pastor. And what are you?
Worship pastor. I'm in charge of all the worship and production as well. So yeah, been doing it full-time the last 7 years, and
so close to 10 years.
Yeah, I've been part-time probably over 12, a decade.
Yeah, so. About 12.
Yeah, but
full-time last 7. Yeah.
Shoot.
Started really young. I was about 18. So
yeah, which is funny because that goes into what we're talking about today: being in the ministry. Young. Yeah. So our podcast is Young, Dumb, and Broken, as you know, if you're listening to this. And so for the next 3 weeks, we kind of wanted to set up what each thing meant to us, I guess, before we really start diving into some other really serious topics. So this week we're talking about being in the ministry young. And I feel like we've kind of have earned the ability to talk about this because we are young.
We're still young.
I don't feel young, but we're young. And we started young. I started in the ministry at 18. You did too.
Yep.
And you started at 20, right? Yeah.
You've kind of been in it your whole life, but
I have been in it my whole life, but officially
you were born into it.
Yeah.
I was born into it. I am a PK. How do you do a P and a K in sign language?
I wouldn't try.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend any people out there.
No.
So I am a pastor's kid, but at the age of 12, God kind of revealed to me that He has called me to be in the ministry, and there's he revealed to me that children's ministry is really where my heart is. I also love women's ministry. I love being able to minister to women and moms, but my heart is kidsmen. I'm a kidman. But started at 18. You're so ridiculous. Started at 18, and now I'm 29, and Jake is 29.
Almost 30.
Jesse's 39.
We all know black don't crack. No, I'm the youngest. The 28-year-old about to turn 29.
Yeah, you're only like 6 months younger than us.
We're technically the same age.
Yeah, pretty much.
Technicalities.
Real close.
Jake's going to be 30 next month.
In April?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
Remember we talked
29th?
about this.
Oh, you're the 29th. I'm the 26th. Jordan's the 7th.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And you're
Close.
When's your birthday?
November.
Oh, you're lame.
I'm a Valentine's Day baby. My parents conceived me on Valentine's Day.
Shout out to
Shout out, Mom and Dad, for celebrating love.
Oh god.
My brother is also a Valentine's Day baby. You want to know how I know this?
You guys are both born on this same month.
November 16th and November 17th.
Well, maybe that's it was a ritual. It's a tradition.
I guess so.
And then if you think about it, my brother is August, so I'm pretty sure he was conceived on Christmas.
So we know what your dad got for Valentine's Day.
My mom's a gift giver. That's her love language. So I think that was the gift of physical touch.
The train is officially derailed, so I'm gonna bring us back.
Oh god.
So I'll be 30 this year.
Yeah, we're all 30 pretty much.
Pretty
We're
much.
young.
Yeah, we're young.
We're young.
So let's talk about being young.
I agree. I think that what we had talked about was kind of wanting to share with you guys in our own experiences, like what have been kind of some of the challenging things in the ministry being young, and then also some of the rewarding things being young in the ministry. So I think that since I started, one of my biggest struggles has been just the need to just prove myself. Like I feel like I show up, or I've had to prove that I know what I'm doing, or show up and prove that I am called to do what I'm doing, especially because for me, my biggest struggle being a kids pastor is that a lot of the children that I minister to, because I am so young, their parents are a lot older than I am. And so to kind of have to, what I feel like, prove to them that I know what I'm doing. And even though you are older than me, and of course you know your kids better than I do, that God's called me to minister to your kids. And so I think I struggled for the longest time, like almost pushing myself further than I should have, or to the edge, just because I felt this like pressure of having to prove that I knew what I was doing. And honestly, the first time I did ministry full time for a while, got pregnant with my youngest son, God kind of knew that I was not in a healthy place and spoke to me and told me to sit back for a while, take time with my family. So I stepped away from the ministry for a few years, and then he graciously called me back, like very thankful that he put me back into the position that I'm in. But I think he asked me to step away because the need to prove myself became so overwhelming that burnout hit me so fast. And because of that, I really feel like now I've known how to watch those triggers, just, am I doing this because I want to be perceived a certain way? Or am I doing this because I know that this is what God's called me to do? So that's been my biggest struggle. And I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that, because the pressure does pop up quite a bit, So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, my being young in ministry, I'm probably like more the opposite of that. I never really felt like I had the need to prove myself. I was probably, you're young, you're kind of hard-headed. You think you know everything, when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, maybe, I don't know. But within those years, I just remember, finally accepting correction, like whenever I would do things that when I would mess up, when I would make mistakes. And I remember one instance, I showed up to a service for a ministry that wasn't really ministry I was, currently doing, but I was asked to go lead worship in this ministry, and I showed up unprepared, right? And there was a song that we were supposed to do and supposed to have learned, and known it really well, and it was on the list, and I just kind of ran through it. And when it came time for rehearsal and to practice the song, I had no idea. I couldn't figure it out because I hadn't prepared, So that was a teaching moment, at a pretty young age, where it's like, you got to show up ready, you got to show up prepared. And so there was a lot of learning, correction. I had all the abilities, far as just technical abilities and the talent of being able to sing and play guitar and do all those things. But there's this whole other side, to worship ministry and within the relationships and, ushering in the presence of God and that type of thing. So, learning all of those things and how to be a part of a team, and stuff like that. There's a lot of things I thought I knew, but I didn't know, and I had to humble myself, and be willing to learn.
Being willing to be corrected, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And nothing makes you step into, okay, I guess I should be okay with being corrected, than showing up unprepared and being embarrassed by it. Because didn't that person basically send you home?
Well, we didn't do the song that night, you know, and everybody had, prepared to do that.
Except you.
Except for me. Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, it was one of those things, on the way there, I'm trying to figure it out real quick, but not giving it. There's no intentionality behind it. I need to know this because it's important.
Almost I don't want to say a cockiness, but a pridefulness of just I know what I'm doing.
A little bit of that. Yeah. And I can figure this out, but not giving it that importance that it needed.
Yeah.
This is an important thing. And
yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I've been there too, just being prepared for things. I think for me, I know, my probably most difficult thing I dealt with when I first got into ministry was not having mentorship, not having the right people that really chose to take time to invest into me. My first go around dealing in ministry, I was under a pastor who never really gave me any constructive feedback or criticism. It was never any coaching moments. It's never, I want to see you get better.
Right.
I feel like it was always a comparison. Anytime we would have a conversation about just what we're going through with what's happening in youth, and whether it was events, and he would always bring up stories about, oh yeah, I used to do this when I was a youth pastor. I could have 150 students here if I wanted to. And I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, if you have insight on something that can help me, why not tell me and not just brag about you that you can do these things?
Yeah.
And I think at that moment I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be at that church for a long period of time.
Right.
Because the thing, I was 21 when I took over my own youth ministry, still young.
Mm-hmm. Still young and still trying to figure out, even
young.
though you're called to it, there's still this identity crisis that we all go through in our early 20s where we're what am I doing? And, okay, I'm called to do this. What am I doing? Why is this so hard? I need help, right? And the crazy thing is that you had a willingness to learn under the leadership, which shows how we're all different, right? Jake's thing was, I got this, so his struggle was the need to be corrected. And yours is, I want to be corrected. I want to be shown how to grow and how to minister correctly and all of the things. So I think that's really good and insightful. I wouldn't have ever thought that that's something that being young, that's an area that you can struggle with, is the need to find a mentor. But it really is. Had I had a mentor, I feel like the challenge of having to prove myself probably could have been eliminated a lot, you know, because I didn't have that. I was very much just thrown into, hey, we know you've worked with kids. The current children's pastor quit. Good luck. And so it was like, oh, okay. So
I think even though like we are young, you know, like we're still more than capable of pulling this off and being, you know, able to do these things. I mean, when you look at David's story, like in the Bible, you know, and where he was at and how young he was, like we're more than able to.
And even with that, you know, I remember I gave a message a couple of weeks ago to my students, and if you look at the disciples' age group, they were all younger than us. Yeah. When they started following Jesus, and there were a lot of them were teenagers, early.
I think
20s.
they thought Peter was 18.
Like they were young.
Yeah, very young.
Because there's something about being young. I feel like it allows God to really work things out of you,
mold and shape
build
you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You know, like because you go through things.
You're moldable. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, but then by the time you get to that point, like you're able to do the things that God needs you to do.
Right. And like going back to like what Jake said about David is he was very young when God called him. I mean, in his early to mid teens. And it was, you know, he was, hey, you're going to be the next king. But of course we have to wait for King Saul to finish his reign, you know, but he was called then. And yet there were still like pivotal moments in his life that set him up to where he was. He was still called, but there was a huge growth that took place before he officially became king. And so I do think that God does call us young so he can start to build and shape us and mold us into who he's called us to be. But I think going back to you, like in order to be moldable and shapeable, there is this need of having good people in your life, good older people in your life to mentor you and walk you through the difficulties of ministry young, because it is hard. It's really hard. I think that what I think about is cool is, Jesse, you have an assistant right now who is 21.
Yeah.
And to think about that, he's starting he was 20 when he started, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, because he just turned 21. So to think about that, he's literally starting at the same age that you started, to me is such a testament to who God is, because he knew that the struggle for you at 20 was that there wasn't any very good people in your life to mentor you. And because he saw that you were able to overcome that, he's now able to use you to mentor somebody else, you know, because I just think that that's really cool, even though having assistants that young is hard, right? Because we were all 20,
it's
20
crazy because like
all
the things that people would say to us, we catch ourselves saying to younger people now.
I know.
Like,
oh my gosh.
You think you know everything.
That and just small things. Like I used to, as a teenager, get so offended when people treated me like I was an annoying teenager or whatever. And now like when I go to the gym or whatever, if it's filled with a bunch of high schoolers, I'm like, can they please have their own gym, you know? And they're literally only like 10 years younger than me.
I remember that statement being told to me, like, you think you know everything, like when I was that age. And now I'm like, I'm that person kind of like saying you don't know everything.
Now I'm accepting to the fact that I still don't know everything.
Yeah, you figure it out. It's like,
like you get humbled quickly.
Very quickly.
Especially in ministry. You know, there's so much, like you're still constantly learning, like constantly being challenged. But that's a part of it.
Right. But I also think like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, so like going into like some of the good things about being in the ministry young, I really think that is one of the good things. What were you? Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
I don't remember.
The ability to kind of soak into an understanding of what's going on around us. You know, that because we did start young, there are things that we've had to learn and navigate and go through that makes us relatable to people that are younger, right? I think that being young, we're able to kind of understand the culture of the world right now. And honestly, I think there's a revival taking place in the world right now that's very much done so by the younger generation.
Definitely.
And I think that because we're young enough to be able to latch on and relate to that. I mean, you look at what took place at Asbury, you look at what's taking place now at Texas A&M, like
Baylor.
At Baylor, all of those things, they're done by college students. Keeping that in mind, our generation and the generations beneath us are so impactful to the world right now. And so I just think that, the ministry and being in the ministry this young is hard, but I also think that if we were older, it would be hard for us to connect with the revival that's taking place right now.
Yeah. And I think also like what's significant, because this, like I said, this podcast is a resource, not just for people in ministry, but just young people in the church in general.
Right.
And then it could be things that can encourage you to serve in church, to serve in different ministries and, to take up that cross and decide that I want to serve.
Right.
But like you said, the revival that is happening, I believe that there's an outcry for this generation that's come, our generation and the generation right after us, with social media being what social media is, there's so much false information about just the life, about the world, about how we should live our lives, that is out there, that Jesus has become on the back burner of this coming generation. So what I see here is a generation of young people that is refusing to allow that to be the case.
Yeah, it's
They're
so
refusing to take the backseat to the world when God has called us to be the front runners, to be the light in this earth. And I think there's a generation that sees the hurt. They're tired of seeing the depression in their friends. They're tired of seeing the anxiety. They're tired of seeing the hurt. They're tired of seeing all these things.
The disconnection.
Ruining
Yes.
their lives and their friends' lives. Yeah.
Right.
That they called out to Jesus.
Right.
And he answered.
It became so common for relationships to be built only behind a screen, to connection to be taken only through text messages, not even phone calls. People won't even talk on the phone anymore, and if that's our relationship with people, that's going to identify what our relationship is with God, that he's just a God that's only there conveniently. And I really do see what you're saying is this generation is stepping up and stepping out and saying, not only do I want to have genuine connections with people where I can reach out and actually hug them and hold their hands and pray with them and take them out to breakfast and be close with them. I want to dive into that same intimate relationship with Jesus. And it's really cool to see that, we are experiencing this revival, and I'm so grateful to be able to be a part of that. To think about the movie that's out right now, the Jesus Revolution. I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it yet, Jesse?
No, but Jordan has. She said she really liked it.
And that's talking about a revival that took place in the 70s, right? That was 50 years ago.
The hippies.
That was 50 years ago. And to document, for that to be such a memorable moment that they've created a documentary about it that's worldwide that people can watch. We're experiencing a 70s revival right now in 2023.
I think even with that, one thing I noticed with the whole Damar Hamlin football thing, when that when the SportsCenter dude prayed on live television.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It created.
I believe that created a shift in this nation, to where people are talking about Jesus. People are not afraid to talk about Jesus. And then you see The Chosen has been an amazing series that's been really blowing up lately. And now Jesus Revolution is coming out. Then the revival is starting to happen. Yeah. People are hungry.
People are hungry.
They're tired of this substanceless world.
Yeah.
Because that's what social media gives you, and having all this access. Now you can get good things from it, but in a whole, there's no substance in these things.
Yeah.
All we do is compare each other. All we do is find reasons to not love ourselves. Yeah. Because, like I said, we're in a generation where comparison is everything. And if you don't have followers, then you don't feel like you're anything.
Yeah.
And I love that the direct response from this generation is that we're going to worship.
We're going to
We're
worship.
going to pursue Jesus.
So
We're
good.
gonna come together and do it.
And like speaking of like The Chosen, like that is, it's so good. That series is so great. It's very, there are some things that are taken out of context biblically, but it is still really great. But it's acting. It's, it's still something that you watch on TV that gives you an idea of the relationship with Jesus. But like you said, the guy on the news, that's real.
Yeah.
That there was no acting. There was nothing. He could have lost his job for it. And for him to say, this is who I'm going to be, like, I wonder if that man knows the impact that he had. And not just that, but I guarantee you he's a dad. And to see maybe this, like, he's created probably this, well, I know there's going to be this, like, effect on his own kids. Once again, it's just this domino effect with the generation after generation. And it is that I wouldn't have ever even really thought about that. It did feel like the Damar Hamlin up to this point, there's been a real shaking in the world.
I also think just seeing just what happened with that story, that the whole nation gathered to pray for this football player that died twice on a football field during a game, and the whole nation gathered to pray. Yeah. Like, I believe that was powerful, and it shook something. And then to see his recovery, to see that he completely, fully recovered, and it was something like you never, like, people got to see firsthand a miracle.
Yeah.
Only God can do that.
Absolutely.
Like, firsthand, the whole nation saw a miracle.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, even being young, what I've noticed for people that are a lot older than us, I feel like their tendency is to be very quick to say, like, the snowflake generation and this and that. Like, they're very quick to give people our age a hard time. I think that it's just how they were raised, to think that. But, for me, like, I feel the complete opposite. I really feel like our world is, even in spite of some of the chaos that we feel, I know that the revival that's taking place is because of that generation that has been for the longest time perceived as the broken generation, the snowflake generation, the disconnected generation. And I do think that there was a season where that was the case. But I just think that there has been a major breakthrough in the heart of young people, including us, and it's really cool to see and to be able to be a part of that. So I think that diving into that, like you said, like, this ministry, this podcast is for young people in the ministry, but it's also for people who are just young, who have a heart and a yearning to follow Jesus and be more involved. And I think, like you said, Jesse, like, the very first thing that I think, if you are, what do I do? How do I expand on my relationship with Jesus? How do I find people that I can connect with that are going to set me up for success for the future? I really believe that finding a church that you can connect with is going to be the number one thing. And then once you do that, get involved in serving some way.
Yeah, and don't, like, it's going to get messy at some point. It's just going to.
Yeah, church is messy.
People are messy.
Yeah, like, regardless of what you're in with, like, whether it's a church or college or school, or it's going to get, relationships are just messy. Yeah. But, like, being involved, like, within the church, like, is very important. Like, because the enemy, he has so many tools this day and age to, like, seclude you. And when he gets you alone, like, that's when his voice is loudest in your life.
Yeah. His plan is to isolate you.
And when you're completely isolated, like, that's when he really, really, really attacks. So,
but the enemy is very strategic too. So, like, whenever you do get, like you said, when you do get involved in church, whenever you do start helping and leading, don't be surprised if something happens that makes you go, is this even worth it? Yeah, people are going to hurt. People are going to hurt you. And most of the time it's going to be unintentionally. or people are going to make decisions, especially people that are in charge of an area. They're going to make decisions that you may or may not agree with. And all of these things, the devil will strategically put in place to make you go, forget this. I don't want to have anything to do with this. Or, he'll whisper to you that the church is hypocritical, and it's not the church. It's people are human, and we all have our broken, sticky, messy areas.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and I think like one thing that I saw that kind of like challenged my heart whenever I saw revival breaking out. So I feel like everybody's first initial reaction is, man, I want to have revival here. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I had that thought, I immediately realized that my students are nowhere near able to receive revival. They don't understand enough about who Jesus is to, in the totality of the cross, to understand what revival is. Yeah. And to actually accept revival. Right. So immediately I remember I was going back and forth on finding a series to talk about. Right. And as soon as this revival thing happened, I feel like I was sitting in church and somebody in our group message put, I love, like, it's just like I think it was Gabby. She said, I love just like the basics of our faith. And immediately it just connected to me that if I want my students to be able to witness revival, they need to understand the Bible. Right? Yeah. They need to understand why revival is so powerful. Mm-hmm. So this is the second week, but we started a whole new series called Back to the Basics, a journey to the cross.
So good. To
really take them from and today, I love because I've been studying like crazy for it and talking about Abraham and the Abrahamic covenant and how Abraham's covenant is salvation history. Mm-hmm. It was through that covenant that we get the cross. Yeah. And I've been studying it. I've been so excited because I'm like, man, like this. And I really just been praying that they will listen and take in this truth because I want them to be spiritually mature enough to be able to have revival. Yeah. Right. To understand, and not just be a part of revival and just sit there and not have an encounter with Jesus. Yeah. Right. But I know they don't have the biblical foundation to understand what revival is without this is weird.
Right. We take religion and we take it and we make it so difficult and we think that it's so hard, and it's really not. It's just knowing who Jesus is and surrendering to the fact that he is who he is. Yeah. He is who he says he is. I love the back to the basics. It's so funny when people ask me about my ministry, they say, what's your goal? And I tell them we can talk to the kids about character and, the fruits of the Spirit and all those things. And yes, those things are a big deal, but I want them to know the Bible. I want them to know the stories of Abraham and David and Daniel and how all of these stories align with exactly who Jesus has said he is and the coming of him, the return of him, And so I think that is often so missed because we try to make who Jesus is so complicated. Yeah. I think that our pastor this month has talked about Jesus. Mm-hmm. I think he just finished the series last Sunday. And so minor plug, if you go to cedarpoint.church, you can find the podcast or the YouTube channel. But I'm telling you, he has talked to us about who Jesus is in these last 4 weeks. So simple. It's been very simple, but it's really given us an idea of just, this isn't hard. You'll have hard moments, but having a personal relationship with Jesus to be able to experience revival, because revival doesn't take place until you fully surrender to who Jesus is, to who God is and who God says we are. Our pastor took this message and he just made it very simple and understanding of who Jesus is. And so I'm excited to see what's going to take place in your teens, because I think it'll happen quicker than anybody else can think. Because I think these teens are hungry for revival, but like you said,
they'll soak it up quick.
They'll soak it up so fast. And I think that
it'll just click one night, I think, be boom.
Yeah. And I want to be there.
For us. I feel like that's how it did for me, when I was that age.
Yeah. So. You were,
14.
Yeah. Whenever you had experienced a real relationship with Jesus, 14 years old. Yeah.
And I think the final goal is for them to appreciate what God had to do to have a relationship with us. as soon as Adam sinned, it took all of this just for us to have a relationship with him again. And like to take them around the journey to the cross. Like I feel like it's gonna, like for me, every time I think about it, I get emotional. Yeah. So I'm like, he didn't have to do this.
No.
He could have started over immediately with Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
But he loved them so much that even when he like that because I think every time we think about Adam and Eve, like whenever they got casted out of the garden, that was the worst part about it. But the reality is, the worst thing about that, them getting cast out of the garden, was that they would no longer have access to the presence of God.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing that they had to face. And I couldn't imagine having to live my life without being able to have access to the presence of God. And I told him, I would rather die than not have access to Jesus.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing that Adam and Eve lost, was God and his presence. Not having to go till the ground, not knowing good and evil. It was losing the ability to see God face to face.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that for generations and years before Jesus came, everyone, that's all they desired, was to be close to God, but couldn't because of Adam and Eve. But I love that Jesus became that bridge again.
Yeah.
So like, it just blows my mind when I see, like, when you read your Bible and God reveals to you these intimate details that you didn't even think about. But like I just had that revelation about the worst thing that they lost in the garden was the presence of God. I just had that revelation talking about it last Wednesday. I'm like, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to humanity, is to be godless. And Adam and Eve had, I know it hurt. Like, I know their whole lives were shaken when they had to leave and can no longer see God because they had sin.
But they also felt unworthy to see God too. I mean, they went and hid, right? Because of the shame that they had experienced. And that's the lie that the enemy tells us, is that because of the things that we've gone through, or some of the sins that maybe we have, or the secrets that we have, that we want to hide away from God. And yet he still, he sought out Adam and Eve, and he seeks us out too. And so, I think that to be able to recognize that we've all fallen short, right? That we've all have sinned. Like, we all technically don't deserve access to God. We don't deserve to be in his presence. And yet in his faithfulness and his goodness, he sent us Jesus because he loved us enough in spite of what we've done. It's really cool to think about. And
to connect it back to the podcast, now we see a young generation choosing to pursue the presence of God.
I'm so excited to be a part of it.
So even though we're young, we're not stupid.
No.
We know what matters.
Yeah, we might make dumb decisions. Yeah. Which is what we're going to talk about next week.
Definitely. But Jake, just want to add something to that? But guys, keep watching this podcast.
This is what happens. We get fired up like the last few minutes, and then it's like, oh my gosh, let's just keep going.
Because there's just so much happening today. Yeah. There's just so much you could talk about and break down and truly dig into. And just so much revelation after revelation that God is just giving us.
Yeah.
And that's been a benefit of us being in ministries at such a young age, that we've got to learn about the Bible. We got to learn history. We got to see things happen. Mm-hmm. We got to see God move. So now that we're adults but still young, our faith level is so high that it can help the people around us. Right. Yeah. They can see our faith. And we can do a whole podcast episode about that, because I got some stories of faith that. I shouldn't be here kind of stories of faith. Yeah. But we need to stop this podcast. We can go on for I'm excited. An hour. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to encourage you guys to do. What I would love for all of our viewers, is that the right word, do you think? Podcast homies. Homies. Little shotties. Oh, God. I would love it if you guys, if you're in the ministry, and maybe we'd love to know what some of the pros and cons for you have been being in the ministry young. So you can comment with maybe one of your own personal stories. We'd love to read those. But also, our heart is to be able to also answer questions that you guys have, or give you advice with stuff that you're going through. Not saying we know everything, but sometimes questions might get us thinking, so we can even relate to maybe the question that you have. So
if you have any questions that you'd like us to bring up next week on our podcast, put those in the comment section too. And I've really enjoyed doing this, and it's only week 2, but it's only week 2, but there are so many great things in store.
Even though they don't know that we recorded this yesterday, we had some technical difficulties, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not complaining because I didn't set up literally anything.
They were trying to stop us.
They were trying to stop us, but I think this one was more impactful anyway. So
it was way better.
Had some fire.
It was way better than yesterday. I think yesterday we were so flustered because we started late, and
it was a lot of stuff happened yesterday.
Ooh, it was a long day.
Ministry happened yesterday.
And if you stay in tune with us next week, you'll see another really cool Cardinals hat. I'll just slowly every week show you guys my collection.
We're Yankees over
You
here.
can also comment which hat is your favorite. And maybe I'll take you to a baseball game with me.
Baseball game. Well, guys, fire shoes check.
Oh, no, mine are better.
Crispy.
I'm not going to hold mine up there because they're some dirty mugs.
Well, guys, we'll see you next time on Young, Dumb, and Broken.